In this lesson, we'll talk about creating normal maps and displacement maps. So when we're getting geometry out of ZBrush into another application, we'll want to recreate the sculpted detail that we've built here on our low-res meshes. So there are a couple of ways that we can do that. Displacement maps will actually, at render time, if assuming that you're subdividing your mesh, they'll tell the application to create all of this detail in the newly subdivided mesh to create those raised areas when you render it. Okay, and we can create those in ZBrush. A normal map will take a low-res mesh and create basically kind of a real-time map that can be applied that will make it look like you have all of this detail. Now, it works really well in these areas that are facing you, but it's not going to change the silhouette at all. So if you have something that's low-res and it's very chunky, you're not going to change the profile or the silhouette, the shape of the edges of that. You would change it with the displacement map because it's actually moving the points, whereas a normal map is not. So let's take a look at how we can start to get some of those maps out. So these maps are going to be based on the UVs. So we've got the UVs created from the last lesson. So all we're going to do now, and again, we'll just focus on this piece right here. We want to go down to the low level, assuming this is the level we want to export our map from, which normally is one of the lower levels. Then we'll come all the way down here to a normal map, right under displacement map. And tangent space is kind of has been used for models that you plan on deforming. So assuming that you're going to be deforming a model and moving it around, tangent space will work. It's that kind of blue one. If you're familiar with normal maps, it kind of has that light blue look to it. Okay, I'll go ahead and leave the values as is. Now, right here is where you can kind of input one, and this is where it's going to show up once we calculate it. So let's go ahead and create our normal map. So it's going to go through that process of taking a look at the high res and comparing it to the low res, and it's going to create a map that's going to enable us to recreate that high resolution detail on this particular level. So if I hover over this, you can see that that map has all of those sort of wrinkles in it, and it's all based on the same UV layout that we had for the texture map. So to be able to export this out of ZBrush, we need to actually clone it over into our texture palette. So once we've created it here, let's go ahead and clone that over. And now we can come in and export this out. Now keep in mind, sometimes you'll need to flip this vertically to match up with the how the UVs come in other applications. And sometimes that's set automatically as well. But you can see now I have it and I can go ahead and just export it out. So this would be applied to this low-res piece of geometry and would give you the look of all of the wrinkles in a real-time environment. So think about something like game engines that can sometimes use normal maps to get that kind of detail. You can't run around with millions of polygons in your game engine, so you recreate that with a normal map. All right, so the next thing, or the next kind of map we'll talk about are displacement maps. So here we can do the same thing. This is not going to be that sort of blue map, but it's going to be a black and white map. We have options here. We can choose to make a 32-bit floating point map, will give us more detail, and we can come in here and start to create our map. And again, we want to be at the lower level of this, and let's go ahead and create it. We can also just hit create and export if we want to do it all at once, but we want to see the map, so I'll go ahead and create the displacement map. It's going to go through that same sort of process. Now if I take a look at this, you can see we've got the same sort of thing here where the light areas are raised up, the darker areas are pushed down. So this is, think about this as we take this mesh, we subdivide it 4 or 5 times, we apply this map to it, and wherever it's lighter colored it raises up, wherever it's darker colored it pushes in, and you create eventually hopefully the same look that you had on that particular model. Okay. Now to actually export this out, we could hit this button down here to create an export, or we can clone it, and this will actually clone it over into the alpha rather than the texture. So we can go into the alpha palette and export it from there if we want to. Now there is a cool plugin that will allow us to do a lot of these maps together as well. And if we come into Z plugin, it's the multi-map exporter. And here we can choose what kind of maps we want to actually create. So we could create a texture from the polypaint. We could create a displacement, a normal, an ambient occlusion, a cavity map. There's all these different kinds of maps that we can create. If we come down here, we can choose the size. Okay, we can choose to export for all the visible subtools if we want to do it, and so for all of them. And so this really can speed up our workflow if we have to export maps for a lot of different subtools, even subtools that need to be on the same map. We can do that by merging the maps. Okay, we have export options down here, and there are options for each individual kind of map. So the same options we saw for the normal map, you can see here. You can choose what level you want to calculate that from. Same thing for displacement map. Vector displacement has more information in it than just a regular displacement, so it not only has the height, but also kind of has the directionality, so you can do things like undercuts, things like that. Coming in under ambient occlusion, there's options here. So once you set all of your options, and you can also export the geometry if you want to. Once you set all of your options, you can come up here and just say create all maps, and it'll go through this process of creating a displacement, normal, ambient occlusion. Let's just do normal and displacement, and we can say okay, create all maps. It's going to ask us where we want to save those, so I'm going to go into images and let's make a maps folder. You can see that we can create a TIFF here, and so I'll call this, we'll just call this test again. So let me go ahead and save. So here we can see our maps that we created. This is actually, I saved it out as a PSD instead of a TIFF. And so let's open up these in Photoshop, the PSD, and then the normal map as a Targa. So jumping into Photoshop, you can see here's our normal map, and you can see that detail coming in there. Again, based on the UVs that we created, you can see that it's flipped vertically. Same thing here with the displacement map. You can see this grayscale map with the lighter areas being raised up and the lower areas being sort of the crevices. All right, so being able to create your maps there in ZBrush is a really powerful way to bring the detail that you've created as a sculpt and as paint into the world of the production environment, where you want to reapply that as some sort of a mesh on an animated character, let's say, or in a game engine. Having those maps available to you, and you can still modify those outside of ZBrush if you want to. You have those available to you, but exporting those out is going to be really valuable for you as you start to get these projects together. All right, so let's go ahead and in the next lesson finish up by talking about some integration with other applications. So how we can start to get our meshes and geometry and kind of work together with other programs besides ZBrush. So we'll take a look at that in the next lesson.